This was paid for by Team Kennedy.
Kennedy, 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 Kennedy. Do you want
Welcome into We the People Radio right here on News Talk 790 KABC. I am Jake Underwood, here to provide you with what you might not hear in the mainstream media when it comes to this campaign and the people on it. This week we're going to talk to Jeff Cole. He created a song called I Want RFK. He's part of the Frustrated Rock Stars. Plus, we're going to speak to Link Lauren. He's a senior advisor, and you might know him on Twitter and TikTok at It's Link Lauren, as well as catch up with communications director Del Bigtree, because there were some rumors that came out this past week. And we're going to see what might be true about those, what might not be true, and get more information with Del Bigtree later on in the show. But I want to talk about something that came to light. It was a little bit last week, but I really want to bring attention to it because it's something that we should be concerned about, and I'm proud to work for the candidate that's actually calling this out. And I'm proud to say that I'm on this campaign not only because we have wonderful people that work here, but because we work for a wonderful candidate. Donald Trump, of course, the front runner, he's the guy who's going to get the nod for the Republicans, tweeted something out about the State of the Union where he quoted what President Biden said. The pandemic no longer controls our lives. The vaccines that saved us from COVID are now being used to help beat cancer. Turning setback into comeback. There you go. You guys remember. A little flashback there. To which point Trump said, "You're welcome, Joe. 9-month approval time versus 12 years that it would have taken with you." So that's what he tweeted out about, and he's excited about that. He's excited about rushed vaccines because he could sign his name on it. So he's really happy about that. Meanwhile, independent presidential candidate Robert F. Kennedy Jr. said Donald Trump clearly hasn't learned from his mistakes. Does he have a point there? Does he have a point about this vaccine that was rushed out? Does he have a point about the way that he handled COVID and shutting down businesses? Millions of people losing their jobs. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. on Twitter, of course, at Robert F. Kennedy Jr., went on to say on Twitter, he fails to recognize how ineffective his WarpSpeed vaccine is as the 9th shot is being recommended to seniors. Even more troubling is the documented harm being caused by the shot to so many innocent children and adults who are suffering from myocarditis, as well as brain inflammation. And I know what you're thinking. Here we go with the misinformation again. No, not exactly. This has been confirmed by a CDC-funded study of 99 million people. The independent presidential candidate goes on to say, instead of bragging about its speedy approval, we should have honesty and transparency, debating the abundant evidence that the vaccine may have caused more harm than good. And then he goes on to say that he's looking forward to debating both President Trump and President Biden on September 16th in Texas, as well as a link to that study, and that, of course, can be found on his Twitter page. I'll tell you what concerns me about President Donald Trump. I have yet to hear him say that he made a mistake. I have yet to hear him say that he made a mistake by not completing the border wall when he was in office. I have yet to hear him say that he's made a mistake about anything. And if there was something to come out and say that you made a mistake, my bad, shouldn't have done it that way, it's rolling out the vaccines the way that he did. This would be the time to say, you know what, my bad, I didn't handle it well, I didn't have good people around me, whatever it might be. I want to hear, I need to hear him say that he didn't handle that well. Because he didn't. Say what you want about, inflation and Bidenomics and all this, and I get it. I understand that frustration. But we have a guy who's running for president who shut down numerous businesses, shut down schools, allowed all this to happen. Didn't stand up, and instead he's on a stage going, Operation Warp Speed, it was beautiful, wasn't it? I got everybody vaccinated, wonderful. All those tax dollars going to that. I think the actual figure is $26.32 a shot. All those free, go get your vaccine. It saves people. Thanks, Joe. Countless money. Countless tax dollars. And then they want everybody to pay their fair share. I get it. Everybody wants people to pay their fair share. But let's start going after Amazon, because since those small businesses were closed down, a lot of them didn't recover. And those taxes, that money for the government's gone. It's almost like they didn't think that one through. Something else that's been really relevant in the news, TikTok. We're talking about getting rid of TikTok. Remember a few weeks ago, we were talking about the Blaze TV reporter who was arrested? And I said it's only a matter of time until they come after you. We might be there. This might be that time. And I understand social media. I get it. And to be honest with you, I'm torn on whether or not TikTok should be banned. I really am. I'm torn on it because I understand the internet is a cesspool. It's disgusting. A lot of nasty things are said and done. But I support their right to say it. If somebody disagrees with me, I support their right to say what they're saying. Nobody should be muted. So the government's going to take, or the government's going to try, I should say, to take TikTok away for the sake of national security. We have to protect people. Now is when you want to? Now. How about we start at the border? Let's start at the border. Let's protect Americans from the border instead of the internet. What was the Patriot Act doing? Haven't you been protecting us? Isn't that the whole thing? Isn't that the gimmick? So they're going to try to take away your right to say what you want, how you want, when you want on one social media platform. But if they're able to do it with TikTok, what makes you think Twitter isn't next or Facebook isn't next? Well, it's for the sake of national security. China's getting information. Every time you log in to a website and you press enable cookies, they're getting information. The information's already out there. So why do they want to stop this now? Why is TikTok the one that they're deciding this is the one we have to take down? It's a threat to national security. Is it? Because Joe Biden has one. He's on there posting videos. TikTok stars. He's doing the dances. Look at me, I'm dancing. They look at me, they say, hey, Joey, let's make TikTok. I said, let's go ahead, let's do it. So they can have TikTok. They can use that platform. They can have their voices heard. But we can't. It's interesting, isn't it? So is this potential ban for national security? Or is it the government trying to go somewhere they shouldn't go? Independent presidential candidate Robert F. Kennedy Jr. spoke about this. He released a video early last week. This is what he had to say.
Hey, everybody, it's Robert F. Kennedy Jr. here. I've been hearing a lot about the momentum in Congress to ban TikTok, and I want you to remember that every right that the government has ever taken away from citizens was removed under the pretense of national security. My father's favorite philosopher, Albert Camus, wrote that the welfare of the people is always the alibi of tyrants. And it provides further advantage of giving the servants of tyranny a clear conscience. Remember that when Congress gives Joe Biden the power to remove an app from your cell phone. Ironically, Joe Biden himself just joined TikTok. People love TikTok. It's the digital public square. If there are security concerns in the tech backend, let's address them there. But let's never reduce Americans' ability to freely exchange ideas. TikTok has become an avenue for young Americans to grow businesses, to express themselves, and to join the political discourse. President Biden enjoys censoring and silencing those who dare question him. I know that because I just won a lawsuit in the Court of Appeals on that issue against him. The First Amendment should not be disregarded for any reason. We should be encouraging more discourse in this country instead of less. As president, I'm going to fight for your free speech rights and for all Americans to have platforms in which to grow their businesses and express themselves. Don't you want that kind of president?
He asks a good question there. Don't you want that kind of president? Don't you want a president who is going to stand for you to be able to say what you want, when you want, to be able to have your opinions heard, to be able to say what you think should happen, whether people agree or disagree? Because this is just slowly chipping away at what our rights are. And the last two presidents when they had the chance to, they took some of those away, closing down churches, whatever it might be. Because neither one of I'm not saying that they put these COVID, restrictions in, because I know that for the most part, President Donald Trump left it up to the states, but they didn't have the citizens' backs when it came to be too extreme. Because Operation Warp Speed wasn't just the vaccines. Operation Warp Speed was the way that they handled all of it, because they shut everything down, because we were told they had to rush the vaccine. So then we can take that vaccine so we wouldn't get sick and kill grandma. That's what everybody was. Everybody was a grandma killer. So we have both former presidents who are running in this election bragging about a vaccine that doesn't work. Get in line for your 11th booster. It's coming. And for policies that shut down the country, shut down the schools, shut down small businesses. They're bragging. Meanwhile, only one person's standing up. One person is looking at this and they're going, people shouldn't be censored. And that's independent presidential candidate Robert F. Kennedy Jr. And if you think he deserves the right to be on a ballot, if you think that you deserve to have that third choice, you can. By going to kennedy24.com/CA-ballot and register for We the People. When we come back, we're going to talk to some of the senior advisors, Link Lauren, as well as later in the show, catch up with Jeff Cole. He's from the Frustrated Rock Stars and created a song called I Want RFK. And we'll catch up with Del Bigtree as well. Let's go through some opportunities you have to do some pretty cool events here with the campaign. That and more when we return.
No matter what his creed, it's promised in the Bill of Rights to which we must be true.
This is We the People Radio, 790 KABC.
This was paid for by Team Kennedy.
Yeah, boy. That boy Cash. Hey, yeah. Community server. Cause if not, what's the purpose? That's why I'm standing on business. That's why I'm standing on business, yeah. They truly don't deserve.
Welcome back to We the People Radio right here on News Talk 790 KABC. We're going to talk to Link Lauren. He's one of the top advisors here on the Kennedy campaign. But before we do that, I want to let you know about a pretty cool opportunity to hear from Mr. Kennedy and Amaryllis Kennedy, who is, of course, the campaign director in honor of Women's History Month. That's going to be Sunday, March 24th. It's your opportunity to hear from Mr. Kennedy about the women who have been influential in his life and explore the issues facing women today. Special guests include influencer Jessica Reed Cross, as well as others. Tickets for the Zoom event are available at kennedy24.com. Now, without further ado, we welcome in, you know him from social media, whether it be TikTok, Twitter. His it's Link Lauren. We welcome in one of the top advisors to the campaign, Mr. Link Lauren. Link, thank you for joining us today.
Hey, thanks so much for having me. How are you doing?
I'm well. So let me ask you, I followed you on social media and I didn't realize you were a part of the campaign, even though we're both working on the campaign. So
Right.
How did that journey, how did that start? What was it that got you to join this campaign?
So the Cliff Notes version is that I was covering news and politics on my TikTok page in the spring. And, when Bobby announced his campaign, I would just do videos about his campaign, like I do videos about Trump's campaign or Biden's campaign or anybody else's. And Rob Lucero, who works on our campaign, reached out to me in June and said, do you want to come interview Bobby and film some TikToks with him if you're in Los Angeles? And so I went to Los Angeles and we filmed together. And then we just stayed in touch. I stayed in touch with Amaryllis, our incredible campaign manager, with Bobby, with Stephanie. And lo and behold, they invited me in October to speak before Bobby at the Independence event when he left the Democratic Party on October 9th. And so then we stayed in touch a little more after that, got to know each other better. And I came onto the campaign part-time and then full-time and have been here a while now.
And so it's funny, you bring up the Independence announcement. So I helped set that up, and then I was actually the after party. I was running sound and everything for that. So when they were speaking, I was behind the curtain playing the music and everything.
Right.
And I have it on, and I hear your voice, and I'm like, is that the guy from TikTok? I'm like, oh, okay, so is he working with us? And then I didn't hear too much from you, so I'm glad to have somebody who's as media savvy as you are, because a lot of people don't consider social media. Oh, you're welcome. But a lot of people don't consider social media, but it is. And I'm in those meetings. I'm not going to pull the curtain back too much, but it's good to have a mind like yours on these meetings where you could go, hey, we're overthinking this. Put a hashtag on it, and millions of people will see it. How important is it to make sure that the videos get out to the right audience?
I mean, it's definitely important because, for so many months, the mainstream media, they were ignoring Bobby, they were ignoring the campaign, or basically just disparaging him or smearing him with these smear campaigns. And so going to social media has been really the best avenue for Bobby to get his message out there. So if you're not reaching the right people, what are you doing? And, we just did our State of the Union, which has tens of millions of views. And I was really involved with that, and Jonathan, and so many incredible people on our team. And so that got as many views as Joe Biden's State of the Union, with people tuning in. So new media is way bigger than legacy media. It's just not really talked about in the legacy media so much.
And so let me ask you, because you've been making content about politics for a little bit, what got you into making political style TikToks and really getting into it?
It's so funny, actually. I was doing more pop culture focused video. I mean, talking about the royal family. I was funny enough on like Sky News doing royal commentary, which is seems like 9 lives ago.
Right.
And then, Donald Trump did a town hall on CNN with Caitlin Collins, maybe in April or May last spring. And, everyone on CNN was melting down. A lot of the viewers said, we're boycotting, we're not watching. And I remember Anderson Cooper going on air and saying, it's going to be okay. Everybody's going to be okay. And I did a TikTok the next morning where I'm like, are you guys all right? We can't live in our own worlds. We can't live in our own little silos. We have to hear from everybody. I'm like, Donald Trump has a right to be on CNN the same way Joe Biden should go on Fox. Everyone should be on every single network so we can get all the information. And I think just allowing a space for open dialogue and debate on my page, that video was really big and brought in a lot of followers. And on TikTok, it was such a Democrat-leaning platform to even hold space for independents, people who lean in the other direction. I think that's what really helped push it.
Yeah, I worked in news in Cleveland, Ohio, when all that was happening. And I just remember, like, I'm sitting down with like my news director and all these people, and we're sitting there, we're going, how are they having a meltdown for having a former president on their network? Like that's
Right,
absolutely
exactly.
insane. They should want, if anything, if you're the Democrats, it's better to hear from a guy like Donald Trump, so then you know how to attack him later on. You can balance out what he says, but there's no strategy anymore. Link, let me ask you before we let you go, the whole point of this radio show is for we the people, and it's to register, to get people to register for the party here in California. What if you get to be that voice in the voters' ear as they're getting ready to walk into the booth? What do you want them to know about Robert F. Kennedy Jr.?
If you want someone who's going to secure the border, drain the swamp, bring your household prices down, help you with your mortgage rates, help you get into a home, clean up your water. I mean, there are people in this country who don't have clean water, which is ridiculous. We're supposed to be the most prosperous country on earth. You want someone who's going to wind down the war machine and stop spending trillions of dollars overseas and not sell out to military contractors, then RFK Jr. is your guy. If you want to just turn the page in this country, I think a lot of people this election, it's really just going to be about, do you want to turn the page or do you want a rematch of 2020? If you want to turn the page and exhale and try something new, vote for RFK Jr.
Link, well said, and thank you for making time for us today. Try to get some rest. I know you're busy, especially with the vice president announcement coming up on the 26th, and of course you can watch that. It's going to be live streamed, Kennedy24.com or the YouTube page. If you want details on that, go to Kennedy24.com. Link, thank you again for making time. I hope you have an incredible day.
Thanks. It's cutting out a little bit, but thank you so much for having me. I hope you can hear me. See you later.
That, of course, is one of the senior advisors to independent presidential candidate Robert F. Kennedy Jr. You can follow him on Twitter at It's Link Lauren and on TikTok. Become one of the almost 500,000 followers on TikTok with the same handle at It's Link Lauren. Now, what the show is all about, and we talked about it a little bit there with We the People, is getting you registered under the We the People Party so independent presidential candidate Robert F. Kennedy Jr. can give you that third choice, that choice that is against lockdowns, that choice that doesn't back Operation Warp Speed and brag about shots online. We talked about that in the last segment. And what I want to do now is I want to give you that way of doing it. And I know I've been telling you to go to Kennedy24.com/CA-ballot. But I want to tell you how easy it is. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you the steps that you need. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you the steps that you need. So it's simple to do. All you need is your California driver's license or ID number and the last 4 digits of your social security number. Once you have that, okay, and you're on the Secretary of State's website, what you do, you go register to vote now. Once you are there, you're going to indicate your citizenship status. It's going to say, I am one of the following, a U.S. citizen and resident of California, and it has some different options. Select what applies to you and then press next. Once you're there, step three, you're just going to fill out some information about yourself, your name, where you live, different stuff like that. It's what we fill out for everything now. Step 4, this is where it's going to get a little tricky. So step 4, what you're going to do is you're at the bottom of the page, you're going to select, yes, my political party preference is, okay? There's going to be a drop-down box right there. You're going to select other party. When you do that, this is where it gets a little tricky. But we're here to guide you. What you're going to do is type we with a capital W, the with a capital T, and people with a capital P. We, the people. Do not say party. Do not say the Bobby party. Nothing like that. We just need you to put we, the people. When you do that, you're going to press next. At that point, you're going to review all your data, make sure everything's in there correctly, click submit, and then you will get an email confirmation of your new party registration for We the People. And what does this mean? What does it mean to register for We the People? It doesn't mean you can never vote for a Republican or a Democrat ever again. It's nothing like that. The reason we had to do this is because under California's laws, when it comes to, and we've talked to Nick Brana about this, we've had other people on about this, you have a better opportunity if you file as a party. And that's why we created We the People. Because we have to create a party here in the state of California, and there's a few other states. I believe Texas is another one. And it's more beneficial for the candidate and for the voters, quite frankly, because you have more options if you form a party. It's easier to get that option on the ballot if we form a party. So that's why we had to do it. And that's why we need your help getting people to register for We the People. When we return right here on News Talk 790 KABC, we're going to talk to Jeff Cole. Jeff Cole created the song I Want RFK. It's catchy. It's pretty good. You're going to hear that, as well as pick his brain a little bit. It's a good song. It's catchy. It's kind of that 80s vibe. It's pretty good. And later in the show, we're going to catch up with the man we talk to every week, communications director, Del Bigtree, and pick his brain on, because I know I haven't talked about it, because I want Del to talk about it, because he's the man with the answers. I don't have all the answers. So we're going to talk to him about that article that came out about VP. Is there a certain quarterback, a Super Bowl winning quarterback? Maybe? We'll talk to him and get those answers when we return after news right here on News Talk 790 KABC.
Community server. Told them not what's the purpose. That's why I'm standing on business. That's why I'm standing on business, yeah. They truly don't deserve it. Gotta ride with a purpose. That's why I'm standing on business.
This is We the People Radio, 790 KABC.
This was paid for by Team Kennedy.
And I'll leave you with 3 thoughts. One is that any power that government takes from the people, it will never return voluntarily. Number 2 rule, every power that government takes, it will ultimately abuse to the maximum extent possible. And number 3, nobody ever complied their way out of totalitarianism. The only thing we can do is resist. Thank you all very much.
We welcome into We the People right here on News Talk 790 KABC. You heard the song coming in a little bit. I teased it, and now we're going to talk to the person, the mastermind behind the song. We're going to speak to Jeff Cole. Jeff, thank you so much for making time for us today.
Oh, I appreciate you, Jake, and I really appreciate you, putting the song out there. And that's my sort of my contribution to Bobby's campaign is just trying to get more people aware.
And I got to tell you, I actually like the song, and I don't want that to sound like a slight to anybody who sends songs in or songs that we discover, but it's good. It's catchy. What made you go with that beat, that message? What inspired you to make this song?
Well, I'm a little bit older, and I tend to lean rock, classic rock. But for this, I wanted to make it somewhat modern sounding. So that's about as modern as I can produce. It still has a little tinge of the '80s, maybe a little poppy '80s stuff. But it's my attempt at trying to do something sort of modern. Maybe I actually was thinking of like The Weeknd or an artist like that has a little bit of today's sound, but
Okay.
also some '80s influence. That's kind of how I put the sounds together. And then of course the lyrics just inspired by Bobby's life and his history and where he is now and all that stuff. So yeah, it just kind of became something that I threw together and wanted stuff like this to happen where it kind of maybe it goes viral. Maybe it catches on and we can really get it out there and do something.
Yeah, so the main thing I listen for is a good beat because, sometimes when we're going in and out of break, I'll play the song as kind of a bed underneath the clip of Mr. Kennedy as he's speaking. And the moment I heard that chorus, I'm like, oh, this is definitely something we could use. So I look forward to using that in the
Great.
future. It's going to make my job a lot easier, so I'm thankful.
That is awesome. I love it. I really appreciate hearing that.
And so because when I reached out to you, it was pretty cool. You sent me a selfie of you and the candidate. So you've been to his events and different things. What was it that made that connection where you went, you know what, this is a guy I got to support?
Well, really, I wasn't that political until the pandemic, and I also have a little bit of background in Bobby's vaccination story about how there was a gold rush for the pharmaceutical companies to get more on the schedule for kids, in 1989 when they passed the law where they're not liable. So I kind of already had gone through that, having some vaccine, stuff years ago. So when the whole pandemic happened and the vaccine came out, I was like, oh, I understand what they're doing. And of course, that's exactly how Bobby was, and that's how he knew. And I knew that he wasn't anti-vax, and that's what a lot of the mainstream media puts out there. But we all know that he's not. All it takes is someone to watch one interview. So just the way the whole pandemic was handled, I think it was completely wrong. I think Dr. Fauci pretty much ruined the country. I still suffer from several, some businesses that I've lost. I lost 2 radio jobs because of the pandemic. So that's really what got me kind of involved in politics. And, I've always been sort of independent. I've never voted for a Republican or Democrat in my life. I've always pretty much voted libertarian. So, of course, I love Bobby as a Democrat. I think that if things were run like they should be, he would have got to run against Biden and could take the Democratic nomination, and that would be great. But obviously, they don't want that to happen, so he's going independent. Of course, I love that as well. And seeing Bobby on all these long form podcasts, the way he explains how the Ukraine war came about, I just feel like everything that I see him talk about just makes sense to me, and it really does need to change. And he really does, have the experience. He has the knowledge. So I just completely related to him, and I was like, hey, I'll do a song, and I'll do a RFK tribute song, and maybe again it'll get out there and get to him, get to his campaign, and we'll see what happens.
And here we are. So Jeff, I mean, well said. I think that's the reason why a lot of people are supporting him, and that's why we need to get him on the ballot here in California. You can find those steps by going to Kennedy24.com/CA-ballot, BALLOT. So, Jeff, if somebody wants to get in touch with you or just keep up with you, how can they do that?
Well, the best way is to go to thesouthsideride.com. I also do a morning radio show here in Atlanta and Middle Georgia, and we're independently owned. So we don't have any corporate rules, really. We get to have a lot of freedom, and that includes, talking a lot about the campaign for Bobby. I don't make any, I'm not a neutral party in this. I'm trying to spread the word in my own way, is in my little world of radio morning show here in Georgia, that, hey, we have a third-party candidate. You don't have to choose Trump or Biden. There is a legitimate a really great third-party candidate. You just don't see it on the mainstream media. and that really bothers me. So I try to push it out there as much as I can, and so we do a little bit of politics. We do it fun, but we're also doing just a regular kind of radio morning show, and we play some great tunes. I get to play my RFK song, I Want RFK. You can find that on the website, thesouthsideride.com. And you'll see a link to The Frustrated Rock Stars. That's my sort of pseudonym for my music. And the video is on YouTube. And if anybody is a fan of The Police, the video I made for I Want RFK is a throwback to Every Breath You Take. I don't know if you picked up on that.
I was one. Yep. That's what it was. Okay. All right. Because as I'm watching, I'm going, this seems really familiar. And then the fact that earlier you said, kind of the weekend vibe, I'm going, okay, yeah. Okay. That's what it was. All right. Mystery solved. I was wondering. Okay. All right. Very cool. Well,
some of the shots I did try to kind of recreate that Every Breath You Take black and white look, because as what was it? I think when Bobby got sober, something about him reading Synchronicity by Carl Jung.
Yes.
And of course that was the name of the Police record back then. So it kind of has a tie-in there. I have a lot of tie-ins, with the lyrics and of course the video as well.
Well, Jeff Cole, thank you so much for your time today. We've talked to the artist. Now let's listen to the song. This is I Want RFK.
States is not hatred. What we need in the United States is not violence and lawlessness, but is love and wisdom and compassion toward one another.
I want to thank again Jeff Cole for coming on the show. Of course, his band is called The Frustrated Rock Stars. You can look them up on YouTube if you want to see the music video for I Want RFK. We're about to take a short break, but before we do that, I want to let you know about a pretty exciting opportunity. But first, I want to ask you something. What are you doing in April? You got plans? How about April 11th? It's a pretty specific day. Well, if you don't have plans on April 11th, you can now enter for your chance to win a seat for you and a guest aboard a vessel with independent presidential candidate Robert F. Kennedy Jr., where you'll be treated to an exclusive evening of tranquility and indulgence on a magical sunset sailing excursion. Once again, that's on April 11th. In addition, the prize winner and their guest will receive round-trip airfare, hotel accommodations, a travel stipend, and an opportunity to take a photo and hang out with independent presidential candidate Robert F. Kennedy Jr. More information can be found at Kennedy24.com. When we return, we're going to talk to Del Bigtree, the communications director for the Kennedy 24 campaign, that and more when we return right here on 790 KABC. You're listening to We the People.
This is We the People Radio, 790 KABC.
This was paid for by Team Kennedy.
The Democratic Party and the Republican Party, neither of them are saying that they are offering a change. They're all saying you better vote for my candidate because the other guy is scary and he's going to destroy the republic. Don't you think that Americans deserve something better than the lesser of two evils?
The worst of times, a new soul comes to life, an untold story of lies unfolds before.
All right, welcome back to We the People Radio right here on 790 KABC. And of course, we talk to him every week. It's time to catch up with Communications Director Del Bigtree. He's busy. He's a busy man, but we thank you for making time for us today.
Jake, I am busy, but it is all good, man. We are having a really good time inside the campaign right now. I don't know if we're probably going to talk about it, but man, we are surging. Very, very exciting week for us.
So the thing that my phone's been blowing up about, and of course the announcement's going to be made on March 26th, and you can watch that. It's going to be live streamed. Go to Kennedy24.com for more details. But let me ask you about the VP rumors, because the two that are being mentioned, it's Aaron Rodgers and Jesse Ventura.
Well, look, I'm obviously not going to give anything away here. Of course, this whole conversation is a feeding frenzy that's right on the back of the State of the Union address, which we put out right when Joe Biden had, given his State of the Union. We talked about that last week, but that video is now, I think, well over 40 million views across all platforms. People are learning about Robert Kennedy Jr. They like what they see. The whole world is now watching. So, of course, the big question, on the forefront of everyone's minds then is, who is he going to pick to be his partner in this incredible journey that he's on? And look, all I can say is, I see all the speculation. It's a lot of fun. A lot of the people. There's been many articles talking about a pretty long list of candidates that Bobby's been looking at. But the truth is I've been in some of those meetings, not all of them. And it's been a fascinating, beautiful, wonderful journey watching Bobby reach out to all sorts of different interesting people. And, one of the things I've said in a few interviews is, I always had judgments about, why does someone choose a VP, or why that choice, or I wonder what they were thinking there. And it's really fascinating to actually be in the room. As I've said before, I don't come from politics. I come from television. I'm a communications director really because of my background working for CBS and all the work that I've done. But I'll tell you, Jake, to sit in the rooms and to sit in these conversations and really just being a sounding board for Robert Kennedy has just been so interesting. And, people can have their judgments, and I hear a lot being said. And, I'll say Aaron Rodgers, great guy. Obviously, I love him as a football player, and Jesse Ventura. And there are reasons all of these people have had the interviews that they've had. All I can say is this, Jake, is I do know who RFK has picked to be his partner on this journey now. The official announcement is happening on March 26th, and, we're keeping it pretty tight even inside the campaign. But here's what I can say. that those of us that know who the choice is believe that this is the perfect choice. And we are all extremely excited about the next stage of this process. And I believed it before. Now I know we're going to win. It's just spectacular. What a team this is going to be.
Yeah, I've had friends of mine ask me, and they're like, do you think it's Aaron Rodgers, or what's the validity of these articles? And I don't know. I haven't been told, and I don't want to know. I want to be surprised. I want to see it all happen, and we can on March 26th. Then of course that's going to be live stream. That's 11 a.m. Pacific, but I trust.
Yeah, and everybody, look, if you want to be there, Oakland, California, March 26th. This is going to be a historic announcement. I mean, really, this is the final team of the most successful independent campaign since Ross Perot. I believe that this choice is actually going to blow those numbers out of the water. And what we are watching is a historic independent run. And for the first time in my lifetime, you are going to see the candidate that the entire nation will have to grapple with, thinking, my God, an independent candidate, a third voice, is on the verge of being the next president of the United States.
Something else I want to ask you about, the TikTok ban that's really in the news right now. And an independent presidential candidate, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., he put out a video about the TikTok ban, and I'll tell you, I'm split. I personally am split on it. I think social media, it is just a complete just cesspool, but I understand why you need it. And I watched this video from Robert F. Kennedy Jr., where he starts to explain, if they take this away, they're going to try to take more things away from you.
I mean, that's it. It's really a slippery slope, isn't it? And this is the thing about being a president, is these are the hard choices. The easy ones we can all handle on our own. It's the big ones. What is the big question? What is the more dangerous issue? Is it a social media company that maybe collecting information, which I hate, and, we should definitely be getting on top of that. But is it less dangerous than perhaps a government that once believed in free speech and believed in a free market and said, look, you know what your risks are. The risks are right there. They're public. And if you decide that you want to take that risk, then that's your choice as an American. If that's a way that you want to communicate, then is the government in a rightful place to stop that communication, to interrupt that? Do you know how many businesses use TikTok to promote their work, that have used TikTok, that have seen a boom in entrepreneurship through that? You know how many businesses will be destroyed if the government just decides it's going to block your use of that communication tool? A lot. I mean, every choice you make in politics, especially as a president, has repercussions, and they're not easy choices. They all affect someone somewhere. And that's why, personally, I'm speaking from my own personal thought now, I'm really a less is more now. It seems to me that the government, we want as little government as we can, that we need to walk amongst each other and have peace. And beyond that, you start really, everything is a step in a slippery slope. When you bring the government in to fix your problem, it's like it's like doing surgery with a chainsaw. It's not a scalpel, it's a chainsaw, and it wrecks everything around it. And so that's what I think, Bobby Kennedy is saying is, look, we can have adjustments, we can work on some regulations, but when you start threatening to take down communication tools, that is that's a very dangerous precedent to set.
And then before we let you go, I understand you had a pretty busy Monday. Do you want to talk about that?
I did. Monday was amazing. Supreme Court, the Supreme Court is really hearing what was called Missouri Biden case. This is the censorship, speaking of censorship, of the Biden administration that we now know happened based on the Twitter files, the Amazon files, all of this information coming forward. And our own Robert Kennedy Jr. is right in the middle of that case with, I think it's CHD versus Biden. He's in there because we saw in the Twitter files that Bobby Kennedy was, spoken about by the government to social media companies to censor him, to shut down his communication tools. Because why? Because he was literally now, and I can say this unequivocally, telling the nation the truth about the coronavirus, about the vaccine, the fact that it wouldn't, be able to stop transmission, and it now doesn't. That was misinformation by mainstream media then. Now everyone that got it is on their 9th booster and still getting sick knows that's the truth. And all the other issues around there, that the lockdowns were the wrong decision. They did more harm than good. That's now a scientific fact. We now know that Tony Fauci, the architect of this entire COVID lockdown, which was based on a principle that standing 6 feet away from each other somehow would stop this virus. And now he's admitted in front of the Congress that that had no basis in science. It just kind of popped up. And so Robert Kennedy, yes, was right in every single one of those accounts. And we know that the Biden administration was literally asking social media companies to censor him, to shut down his sites, to shut down his voice. And we now know they were shutting down the truth because it didn't fit their narrative, which was to censor and control America. This is why this man needs to be president. I mean, if being right during one of the most important periods in certainly modern history isn't enough, certainly the fact that you were telling the truth when the other guys were literally trying to duct tape your mouth, shut you down, and keep you from letting the world know what was actually going on. This is such an important case. And I was just, protesting or speaking in front of the Supreme Court in a beautiful rally, lots of great speakers. And what's at the heart here, the Supreme Court's looking at is just whether or not this case whether we should wait for the case to happen. Right now, you have lower courts say, look, we're putting an injunction on, the Biden administration. They are no longer allowed to go forward with any more censorship or conversations with the social media companies until this case is heard. So this isn't even the Supreme Court hearing the case, it's just hearing the case of the injunction. So I believe the Supreme Court will uphold this decision, because if they don't, we're going to spend years being censored by whatever administration, Biden administration, the rest of this year, and hopefully Bobby Kennedy will get in there, and then this will all end, and the censorship will end. But if it's Trump or whatever, it could continue on. The Supreme Court needs to make the right decision. We're waiting to hear what that is, and that decision is no more censorship until we're through until this case is heard.
That is our communications director, Del Bigtree, right here on the Kennedy campaign. Del, thank you for making time for us, and try to get some rest. I know you're busy, you're out doing a lot, but try to get some rest.
I'm too excited to rest, Jake. I'll see you next week.
That's all the time we have this week for We the People right here on News Talk 790 KABC. Any questions you have, whether it be about the VP announcement, whatever it might be, make sure you go to Kennedy24.com. Get your tickets for History in the Making as we announce who the VP will be for the Kennedy campaign. Until next week, I have been Jake Underwood. Thank you so much for joining us here on We the People.
This is We the People Radio, 790 KABC.